Hello, you are listening to the Goodwill Content Podcast. It is a beautiful sunny Friday in London, but I believe it is sunny right across Ireland, right across the UK. So I hope you're feeling the Friday vibes. I hope you're feeling the sun. I hope you're feeling summer coming soon. This episode was recorded not on a sunny Friday, but in January, and I've just got round to like editing it, and yeah, uploading it. This episode is with the wonderful, lovely, talented, beautiful, funny, charismatic, and very intelligent, very driven Monya Ahmed Youth MP. Monya is from Northern Ireland, stroke the north of Ireland, and like I say, she is a youth MP. And so, really, we talk a lot in this about kind of how to get into politics, especially how to get into politics when it's not necessarily like an environment in which you grew up. You know, you don't know people who are like MPs or anything like that, or kind of know how to go about getting involved in politics, sort of more so than just becoming like a sort of party member. So we have a great chat. Like I say, haven't uploaded anything for a while, and if you're listening to this, then you're presumably going to know who I am. But the reason I haven't uploaded anything for a while is because I've been working on my book and doing edits with my agent. Still can't believe I got to say that, but we have been going back and forth on like edits and stuff to do with the story. So I'm very, very nearly ready to get my book out to like pitch it to publishers now. Well, my agent will do that, but I'm very nearly ready with like the content of the book, and that's very exciting. But that's kind of been my focus for like the last month or so. Obviously, like while working as well, but it's exciting, and I'm kind of like really just hoping that it gets out there soon so that I can kind of have it as like a buffer between me and my work in a way, because like I'm not an influencer or a podcaster or a content creator. Like all of this has been in order to help me share the story that I've written in the book that kind of covers all of these different topics, I think, better than I do talk about them. And I'm not like, I really enjoy talking to the people that I have for this podcast, but I'm by no means like a podcaster or like, it's not even like I don't enjoy it. It's just like the editing process and things like that I find quite difficult. But that said, I really enjoyed this episode and I really enjoyed speaking to Monya. And if you are from home, this is going to be an interesting chat, just period, because like it's just two people yapping. But especially if you're interested, like I say, in getting into politics, especially if you're a young person, especially if you're a young person from like a marginalized background, this is going to be really useful, I hope, in helping you kind of navigate all the different ways that you can get involved in politics. And I think the most important takeaway from our chat is really just that politics is like truly for everyone. And I know that sounds like something that like everybody says, but like it really is for everyone, and nobody should feel like they can't access politics, or that they are kind of, you know, because of who they are or because of where they come from or their background, that they are outside of being able to be involved in it. So I really hope you enjoyed this episode, and yeah, thank you so much for like engaging with my work and listening to me blather on about stuff. I'm not going to do an outro for this just because I don't think I have like the time on my free podcast like allowance left. So just to say, if you haven't already, please consider leaving your email address in my mailing list, which you can access like via the link via my website, which is just jemmcshire.com, but you can like get it on my social medias as well. Because my mailing list, you'll not get any emails. I don't update you or anything. It's literally just to give to publishers, because that's what we're doing now with my agent going to publishers. So it's just to like tell publishers like X amount of people are interested in this book, and the more the merrier. So if you haven't done that already, please consider doing so. You can sign up with different emails if you have multiple ones. I will not be bothered by that. And yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to do my little outro that I usually do at the start of this. So yeah, if you're listening to this weekend, I hope you have a gorgeous, gorgeous weekend. I hope you get your face in the sun, get some vitamin D. Take care, look after yourself, stay safe, and keep cunting. Thank you so much for speaking with me today. I was really, really excited to have this chat because I feel like what you're doing, like your work, it covers so many themes that I like to talk about. But something that's really particular is just sort of getting into politics and making politics feel accessible, especially to young people, because it doesn't always feel like something you can do. So I was wondering if you could quickly sort of tell me about yourself and your background, and like what motivated you to want to get into politics in the first place.
Thank you so much. So I think, yeah, definitely growing up as a second generation Sudanese person in the north, I think that mix of identities really helped me shape how I saw the world. So obviously, like culturally, my Sudanese roots was this political instability, the biggest or one of the biggest human crises happening in the world. So seeing family flee or just die. So even though I'm not in Sudan, there's always this awareness in the background of politics, not just in the news, but affecting people I know in real life. And at the same time, I think growing up here in the north, there's so much deep political and cultural history. And identity in politics is just in the daily conversation. So I think like experiencing both, while it did definitely give me a bit of an identity crisis, I think it was like really essential in shaping how I viewed the world and like motivating me into going into politics. In terms of like my upbringing, I think my parents made they had such like a huge influence on me, the importance of community and pride. I remember, for example, primary school, like my dad organizing a culture day and everyone was wearing clothes that represented them. We had musicians coming in from different countries. I remember like wearing Sudanese clothing, like it was so empowering seeing everyone celebrate diversity. My mom was volunteering in charity shops in her free time. So I think community involvement didn't seem as something like optional or something like, "Oh, like, this is something some people do." It was just part of life and, like, yeah, this is something we do. And I think that's how I started off because it was more of, like, social activism and, working within the community that slowly pivoted me into politics.
That's amazing. And I think it's really interesting you said there about community, like community not being something that's like kind of optional, like taking part in your community as being something that, you feel drawn to do. And I
Yeah.
suppose that really is like it's such we always talk in the north about like the different communities and
Mhm.
communities, this community and that community and people are fighting and everything else. But really what you're saying is like the community activism is politics,
Yeah.
and sort of being involved in it can help shape the way you feel about yourself in the world and how you feel about how you can change the world. I just wanted to ask then about sort of those like earlier experiences, like you say, this kind of culture day, and seeing your family, seeing your parents have this position as members of their community, active members of the community. How did that kind of shape like your political values? Because like you say, you've got this political sort of history of your family and where they've come from and everything that's happened in Sudan, and then all of a sudden you're kind of plopped into like the north and
Mhm.
everything that's happened there. How did that sort of sense of community and that political activism shape your politics?
It definitely made me aware of whatever's going on in the world, all these crises, like, speak out when you see something, talk about it. It's not, everyone for themselves, like in the world, like as communities, we should definitely all be supporting each other, talking about injustices. It definitely like grew that strong self, strong sense of justice that I had for sure. So I think when I saw opportunities where I could make a difference, it just made me want to get them more.
That's amazing, and I love that you saw it as like an opportunity to get opportunities. I think that's
Yeah,
so great, and it's something I talk about all the time. Is like women, just girls and women, and all across the island of Ireland. But it's like we so often just feel like putting yourself out there, grabbing opportunities is like a bad thing. So it's just amazing that
yeah.
you've kind of always had this frame of
Thank you.
mind of like, no, I'm going to go after this. Um, so can I ask that? Because, like I said at the introduction there, you are an elected member of parliament. You are a youth
Yes.
MP. And in fact, you probably know this, like, but just for the listeners, when you Google you, it comes up with a full, like, bio,
What?
I think. Did you know? Yeah, yeah. So I Googled you because I was like, let me just like see if there's any information on her online or whatever. And like whenever like if I Google myself, it comes up with like web pages or something that I've been referenced on or something. But when you Google you, it comes up with a full Google style bio, and it's
That
like
is
Moya.
crazy.
Yeah, yeah. It's like Monya Ahmed is a youth MP elected and da 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 da. And I was like, yo, so
So
cool,
cool.
isn't it? It's amazing. Definitely going to serve you well in the future, for
Hopefully.
jobs and stuff. But yeah, what made you decide to run for the youth MP? especially kind of, going in with like no sort of previous experience and like I mean, I know that you'd kind of had this community activism, but there's a big jump from that to kind of like
Yeah,
being
for
in parliament.
sure.
So what made you run for it, and sort of what gave you the drive to want to put yourself forward for it?
It was definitely terrifying at first, like, it wouldn't have been something I would have thought of doing at all because obviously, as I came from a social activism background, a lot of my work was done behind doors. I didn't like putting myself forward. So, for example, volunteering as a interpreter for asylum seekers, for example, I didn't have to put myself publicly. It was just something I was doing and it made me feel better if I was helping communities, for example. And then when it came to like something like being a youth MP, it was like now we're shifting into politics. Now it's going into like public speaking and putting myself out there. And while it was always something that I'd wanted to grow myself and grow my confidence, it was the thought of it was terrifying. But I had a couple people reach out and send links. This is something like I could see you doing, and I couldn't see myself doing it. But I was like, I can run through this. I can go for it. Worst case scenario, I don't get it. At least I put myself out there. So all of a sudden you're signing yourself up, which made it very real. But I knew that at least it I could make a difference, whether that was publicizing activism movements, just going up, making a difference by going up to my local MPs and, having this title behind me so at least young people were being heard. So, yeah, I think in
That's
terms
amazing.
thank you.
It's okay.
Oh, yeah. So in terms of going for it, I remember all of a sudden there were 6 or 7 candidates there, so it was a lot of competition. So all of a sudden it was an actual election, like putting up posters, making social media accounts, doing TikToks, going around to people, even like having to do assemblies to whole different year groups. And that was something like terrifying to me. It was something I did not want to do, but I had teachers like push me forward, like, if this is something you want, then because obviously it was schools electing you, it was like a real election, you couldn't just apply and get this, it was young people around your constituency. So, I was dependent on these people and these, like, pupils in secondary schools voting, so I guess I had to go for it. And, in the end, like, I am happy that I did it and went for it.
I bet. I mean, that is so impressive. So you had to go round other schools in your area. Is that it, to kind of do this assembly and to get elected?
I guess while it was recommended, I personally didn't walk in and talking
Okay.
to other schools, because obviously some of our schools had their own candidates. So I feel like, oh well,
Okay.
they're gonna vote for their own people. It didn't matter. So I think in a way to get around that, I use social media as a tool to speak out to those other schools
Wow.
instead, because obviously the good thing about, these days is so much of it can be online. So that's why I guess I approached those other schools of making like a candidate account, vote for me, making it interactive, like these TikTok trends with the sunglasses and taking photos, like just doing like a full on campaign. And I was like really grateful to have friends like by my side who, were
Mhm.
reposting stuff. They were helping me put up posters up, even in assemblies, like standing by the side holding big posters, like it does take a community 100%.
That's so beautiful. And I just want to ask you then quickly on kind of, because you say about like having friends and the power of friendship, and something I noticed like when I was younger, it's like Ireland can be a really difficult place to be a teenage girl. Never
For
mind,
sure.
whenever you have like the background that you do and everything. And like I feel like friends, whenever you have really good friends, it's like an armor that you can wear. Like,
Yeah.
it gives you so much safety and so much comfort. And I'm just sort of wondering, like, and this is like obviously off. This wasn't one of your questions, but I'm just wondering, like, what role do you think like your friends have played in where you've got to now, and sort of if you have any kind of advice for anyone who is like struggling to make friends, or feels a little bit like they are like an outsider, or they don't really have that friendship, like those friendships that really matter to them.
Honestly, just put yourself out there. It's the best thing you can do. I think in terms of friendships, like, I don't think I would have had half the confidence to do this stuff without, talk to my friends and them being like, yeah, go for it. Because before you tell people, it's kind of like a crazy idea you have in your head. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go talk in parliament. I'm going to do this. It's like, yeah, right, yeah. And then, like, you talk to friends, they were like supporting you and like, you can 100% do this. And it just makes it seem just that much more achievable and easier just because you have people in your corner. But then I guess I've also experienced, having friends, and then you get into this and you get these opportunities, and it kind of fading away out of like, well, why is she doing all this stuff? Why does she get to do everything? And like not really understanding it. But I think that just comes with time and like it is scary putting yourself out there, obviously, to make new connections, but it's so rewarding.
Absolutely. And I think you've spoken really well about, like the need for community and, the way that you got into this, and we'll go into it in a little second. But there really are like so many programs and schemes to bring people
Yeah,
together, like-minded young people together. And I think sometimes it just takes kind of finding those different like avenues for it.
for
So I just
sure.
want to know then sort of like, so you do the campaign, you do your social media, you get elected. How did it actually feel like to sort of get elected? And like, did that kind of campaign sort of teach you anything about the process of campaigning? And now that you are elected, how do you feel about what it is that you put together for that campaign?
Honestly, it's taught me so much about just advertisement and really going for it and how much effort it actually takes, to be honest. Now that I was elected, it was insanely exciting. I think I remember someone telling me, "Oh, like I think the results are out," and I checked my email and I saw my name with MYP next to it, and I was like, "What?" So it was kind of surreal, but
Wow.
so happy that like my work had paid off, especially because obviously the first elections had gone south, which we'll probably talk about later with how it had lost funding. But seeing my hard work and like, okay, so people actually believe in me to, make a difference in my community as a young person was insanely exciting. I think in terms of like learning about it, the amount of like advertisement and putting yourself out there it takes for like all activists, all politicians, MLAs, like obviously you'll see the posters everywhere and you'll see them going about door to door and I'm like, oh like sure, like anyone can do that. Like it's terrifying. I think especially when, you're up against a lot of other people and it's publicized. So losing was terrifying. It was like, what if I do all this and like I lose and everyone just like laughs? Ha, like you just didn't get it and you've put all these posters up and you have to take them down like a loser. I think the thought of it is what puts off so many people, but I think it just taught me, like, put yourself out there, like, what's the worst that can happen? You either get it or you don't, and it's another learning experience. And just that, like, when something really is worth it, just go for it and put in your all.
I love that. It's so positive. Okay, so you've been elected, like we said, as an MYP. What does this mean? What have you been doing in the time that you got elected? And could you also speak a little bit about the sort of the process of like the different organizations that come together to like facilitate this program?
Yeah, 100%. So, as an MYP, um, some of the main perks that you get is obviously you get to meet so many like-minded people. It's just a network of young people who are really into making a difference and just getting into politics and learning about it. So we had these national conferences where they put in all of the UK MYPs into, a university for a weekend and we had debates, we had workshops. It was like, okay, what issues do you want to focus on, whether that was period poverty, raising the minimum wage for our age, different things like that. Everyone got to talk about what was important to them, and we would get to debate that. Also, just bringing out your confidence in, meeting new people and speaking out because obviously public speaking is a big part of it. And honestly, a lot of people weren't confident in it at first, and it just kind of helps you bring out your shell because obviously everyone's just in the same idea. We also had like meetings with our regional MIPs, so all the ones in the north. We would have meetings every couple of weeks and weekends. Everyone would get to talk about personal projects they were working on and how it was going, and it was really like rewarding and cool to be like see what everyone's doing, that we're making a difference, and just catching up with everyone. I think the amount of friendships you make in these kind of projects is so important. Like I have met some of my best friends through these things, so I think just another reason for young people to get involved in them, really. Also, I think the fact that you get to have, MYP, or Member of Youth Parliament, as your title when reaching out to local MLAs and MPs, sometimes you feel like you're not getting taken seriously as a young person whatsoever, and it's a waste of time, like, no matter what you're trying to talk to them about. Honestly, sometimes having, like, your name at the bottom and that, Member of Youth Parliament, they all of a sudden, they are replying to your emails and messages, and it's like, "Okay, at least I can use this to get my voice heard." and, like because at the end of the day, we are being elected to represent other young people in our area, so that's what we wanna do. I remember also doing a survey. So when I was doing my speech in the House of Commons about, political education in schools, it kind of did put out a I kind of put out a survey saying, do you think that you've been taught adequately on how to vote? Do you know what you're really learning about? Do you know anything about the assembly? And people got to vote, so I got to use that in my speech, talking about why we need a reform in that, for example.
And it's so great to hear that like having that after your name makes a difference because it is massively impressive. Like, if you think about it, there's people who spend their whole lives chasing like letters after their name and you're getting it in your teenage years. It's crazy. You mentioned there that you were in the House of Commons. So that's wild.
Yeah.
That is so impressive. And I know that you kind of had to like sort of speak in the House of Commons and present something. Can you talk sort of a little bit about like what it was like going into a space like the House of Commons? And I think you went to the House of Lords as well, if I'm right. And also just kind of like, yeah, how how did you cope with, feeling nervous about sort of that? And also, yeah, just what that whole experience was like because I've been there for work before and it's a crazy place. Like
It's
it
insane,
really
yeah.
it's mad, and I know before whenever we had the call, like, to kind of figure out what we were gonna speak about, we were talking about those, like, toilets that they have, like, and the as you go first in, and
Mental.
it's as if you're in, like, an old, like, throne room. Like, it really does feel like the heart of the empire.
For
Like,
sure.
it's mad. Yeah. So what was that like?
Honestly, the first time it was crazy. Obviously, through youth parliament and through some of my other campaigns, like my Vote 16 campaign, I've been lucky enough to be invited into these kind of spaces, and it is incredibly daunting at first. You go in, you're like, sort of like that imposter syndrome as well. Like, what am I actually doing in these rooms? Like, what did I actually do to deserve to get to speak here? You see these people, the thing about youth parliament as well, I do have to say, is a lot of the people, more so the English ones, it is quite a percentage of, private school educated kids, who are maybe on, upper class, and it's like the way they speak and then the way I speak, even with the accent, it kind of feels like, oh, they present themselves more eloquently. Like, what am I doing here? It's really like terrifying. But going in there, I think for the House of Commons, youth parliament is really good in giving us these opportunities. So as a youth MP, I think twice in your term, you have the opportunity to go to the House of Commons and we have a debate where we beforehand had picked out, 5 or 10 main topics that we want to debate, and we'll have people elected who can come out and make a speech at first in the House of Commons, and then the speaker will be in the house, and he'll point at people just like any MP debate really, where you get to come out and speak, and some people have a speech prepared, some people just want to talk, and it's insane that you're even sitting in those chairs, because I remember the Speaker of the House literally telling us the only people who have ever sat in these chairs are the youth MPs, and then the MPs, like, no one else gets this privilege. So it made it, like, so much cooler, but so much more pressure. So, we had a debate, and I think it was on political education and, the curriculum in schools and whether that, like, adequately prepares you for the real life. So I remember every time, there was a topic that they were doing, you'd stand up each time just in the hopes of getting picked up, whatever the topic was. Even if you didn't have something prepared really well for that, you just wanted the chance to speak because there's like, 200, 300 MYP sat in those chairs and the speaker's just pointing at people at random to talk. So you're just standing up each time, like, am I going to get a chance to talk? Because I've came all the way here and, lucky enough for political education one and standing up and, you see the microphones hanging down and lighting and you're like, okay, I'm recorded, I have to actually talk. The stress of that and just the pressure, it didn't even feel real. Like, I couldn't remember an actual moment of speaking. Like, my mind just went, I was just in the zone. Like, it didn't feel real. But I think it's so cool that we get these platforms, to be taken seriously and talk about these issues that we find really important.
It's interesting what you say there about kind of like being around those people who are from like those kind of upper class English backgrounds and stuff. Whenever I went to uni in England, I remember like going into like a seminar and I realized that they are taught how to speak.
Yeah.
It was, the tutor went round the room and was like, "What's your opinion on this thing?" And I speak the way I've always spoke, which is like blah blah
Yeah.
blah blah, blah and I've got, I'm always gesticulating and everything. They sort of they're very calm. They know how to present ideas. Just having that like accessibility of knowing how to articulate yourself is so, that it is classism at the end of the day. So to be
100%.
able to go into that environment with an accent from the north and be able to stand up and confidently speak is remarkable. Like it really, really is. I just wanted to ask, like on that, obviously you've spoken about kind of the classist element to this, and I'm wondering kind of like how do you think class and someone's background and geography as well, because I know you're from like the north coast, so where you grow up, how do you think those kind of things affect how people feel if politics is for them or not?
I think ultimately it's presented as, "Oh, this isn't something for me," because you don't feel represented. So you're like, "What's the point of it? Nothing's gonna change. Why should I be involved?" I remember being like, in a council estate, like, no one really cares about this, no one's really represented, like, what should I even be going for this? Like, everyone there probably speaks really eloquently. I was like, "What do I know about politics?" So it was terrifying at first, and understandably so, like, for people who don't feel like it's for them. But I think the good thing about these youth programs and getting involved is that, especially here in the North, I know in England it works out a little bit differently, but at least for us, anyone who was elected, everything, all the travel when we were going around to the House of Commons or, to like a university for a conference, all of that was fully funded. If you needed a letter written to your school to explain why you were going, everything was taken care of. So I think for young people who come from, minority or working class backgrounds, that's why these things are so essential because it kind of breaks down those barriers. And you do see some diversity in people from different backgrounds there as well, so you don't feel alone.
I did some schemes like this when I was younger as well, and I feel like just knowing that those sorts of programs exist
Yeah.
and like being able to go in, like you say, with the funding, like I went to Budapest one time with like it was like a conference hosted in the European Youth Parliament. Yeah, going into that space, like they had, a translator as well, like the little earpiece thing. And I remember
Yeah,
being like, wow, like it really does give you such a confidence boost and you feel like you're part of something. And
for
from
sure.
that, then you sort of, yeah, you feel more enabled to go and do more things. So I do think that like it's so essential that younger people know that there is a space for them in these programs. It's such a shame that, every time you get a new government, it's like, this program's going to
Yeah,
be shut down or whatever. And then obviously they can just introduce bills or whatever at any given time that just cut stuff off. And I feel like in the north we've really suffered with that because so many of our programs have been based on, money that is ultimately like devolved, and we see it all the time that a lot of
yeah,
like cross community programs and things like that start to close down. So thank goodness they find another way to kind of make this
for
happen.
sure, yeah.
So you are now studying law, politics, and international relations. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, great. And so you nearly became a scientist before doing that. And I'm wondering kind of firstly what made you change your mind, although I think probably your involvement in politics. But you've mentioned before, like you've come from an immigrant background. There's undoubtedly a sort of pressure there to go into certain careers. Like we had the same thing in our school, which was like you need to be a doctor or a lawyer
Yeah,
or weirdly a dentist, or a scientist. And it was like this kind of like these are the good jobs you can do, and everything else is kind of frivolous. And that's obviously going to be tenfold then, if you come from a sort of an immigrant background. So I'm wondering sort of what has studying that subject that you wanted to do taught you about putting yourself first and sort of your choices and your needs first. And what do you plan to do now that you are studying? And also, I'm sure there's not many people on your course who can say that they are already elected members of parliament. So, how has that been kind of going into this degree?
honestly, it has been a crazy journey. Definitely, my family background plays a part in this because, coming from this immigrant family, they came from this war-ridden, like, really politically unstable place, and sorry, and, they come here for better opportunities for us, better education, and it's like they we're not really at the point where, you've got all this freedom to be really creative with what you wanna do and tell, like, "Mom, Dad, I don't wanna go to uni. I wanna be an artist, I wanna do this." It was all about stability and, like, what degree is gonna make sure that you get a job and you're gonna have, some sort of financial stability, because that's the point we're at. So for them, it was very much. down with STEM route, science, and, I did obviously play a part into it. It was what I was interested in at first. My A levels were weird choice, but to be fair, it did keep me very open because I was doing 2 sciences and then 2 humanities, so I guess I was lucky in that sense that it kept me open. So I had the 2 sciences and, my parents at that point were, like, pushing me down the medicine route and, once, like, you're hearing the same thing, well, it's like, "Okay, maybe it is something I wanna do." In the end, it wasn't, but in my head, I was like, "Yeah, this is what I wanna do." And, all your work experience during sixth form, working in pharmacies, I've ended up spending a whole summer at Queen's with, scientists and students, doing lab COVID samples and, all this experiments and labs. I came out with a massive project poster. I had to do a lab report. And, for about 2 months, I spent my whole summer and to decide, okay, I think if this was my passion, I would have known it by now. And at the same time, I was kind of started doing different campaigns like Votes 16 and joining the I Will movement. So I slowly kind of realized where my passions were. But for my family, it was sort of like, okay, you know what, like doing a politics degree, like, yes, but no, like, what are you really gonna do with that, Because I was even considering history. I was like, yeah, but like, what are you gonna do with that? And it's kind of a pressure of like, they moved here for a better life, so I need to make sure I am gonna be successful and do something that's gonna get me there. And yeah, I guess by results day, it was kind of hectic because, I get my offers back for, biomed and whatnot, and I'm like, yeah, I'll be really it's not what I know I wanna do in my heart. So, I get an offer and I reject it and I go, "Okay, so I could be potentially taking a gap year and not have a space because I've just got rid of my prospects and my family are not gonna like that." So, I did look up on clearing in places that I did find a law of politics course in Ulster. And then immediately just that, like, sigh of relief, being like, "Okay, like, I'm not gonna, like, already regret the next 3 years of my life because I know I'm gonna enjoy something and do something I'm passionate in." And I think it's just so important for other people, coming from immigrant families to realize, like, you know what, like, you can choose your own path as well. Like, you shouldn't feel completely pressured by your family. While, like, I do understand where they're coming from, 100%. I think it's realizing, like, you've gotta make your own path at the end of the day.
I mean, the fact that you're studying politics and have already spoken in the House of Commons, I feel like the proof is in the pudding there that this is, your calling. So I'm wondering then if you have anything, like any advice or guidance to give to, say, someone who might be in the same position as you, someone from a working class background who's like really passionate about politics but like doesn't even know where to start. Have you got any, yeah, advice or guidance to give them? And also, could you just kind of really quickly like list the actual names of the programs and a
Yeah,
brief summary of what those
100%.
different programs are? Because I know there's a lot of different things that are happening in the north right now that people can get involved with.
For sure. Honestly, just start by looking at the start. Like, it doesn't feel like you're finding opportunities. Like, you have to find them. They're not finding you. Honestly, just looking it up, looking on Instagram, looking at social activism pages. A lot of these programs now will have, residentials that are free or, free transport and travel. So they make it quite accessible. And, eventually as you get into them, you'll find more opportunities presented to you rather than the other way around. I think in terms of the best programs to join, Politics in Action are a program based here in the north, and we're all about cross community projects. We have our Votes at 16 campaign, where we were even invited to the launch of Votes at 16 in Parliament. So it does go places. They do residentials. They have different campaigns you can join for whatever you're passionate about. And I know they do go into schools, and they get funding from different schools and charities. So I think if it's something you're really into, that's a really good way to start. They have an Instagram, they have a website. It's super easy to join and everyone is so lovely. Um, Also, the I Will movement is this network across Ireland and the UK of just really like-minded young people, and they're obviously non-partisan, and it's just people who are passionate about social activism and making a change, whatever that is. You can apply to be an ambassador because I know they do take in a cohort every year, or you can be an I Will champion, and it's just another way to get in. And they've got residential, so you can meet other young, like-minded people. Because I think the best thing about that is just knowing there's people who are like you. Because sometimes you do feel crazy. I mean, like, I'm looking at all this news, I'm looking at everything. Why do I care so much? And like, I feel crazy. No one else really talks about this stuff, and it's like knowing, okay, there's other people who think like me, and just giving you that community and the friends you make in these programs as well. Like, I've made some of my closest friends through them. Obviously the youth parliament. So while the future of it is kind of hanging in the air, I think they are working on getting their funding for next year. And the current MYPs, our term is ending in the next month or two, and I know you can like start apply to be the next candidate. So I think that is something if you're interested in, definitely go for it. Just look up the website. It gives you so many opportunities. Like I've been to the House of Commons, I've been to Downing Street. It's madness. Like it's things you would never ever believe. So just go for it. Like you might surprise yourself. So yeah, if there's any more, on my Instagram, we'll have it somewhere. I usually post a few, so just definitely keep having a look out.
And I will put it in the show notes, but can you just like spell out your Insta handle
Oh
as
yeah,
well so people can.
Monya MYP, so MONYA.MYP.
Amazing, thank you. So I've been asking everyone if they could say one thing to our MLAs in Stormont, what would it be? But you have been in the House of Commons. You are an elected politician. What would you say is the most important thing for politicians to do when it comes to engaging with their constituents?
Instead of making, your constituents think that they have to come up to you, make politics accessible to them. You should come to them. Whether that's in schools and, hosting days where you're in an office and they come and talk to you as constituents or, online meetings. I think it should be the politician's job to come to their constituents rather than the other way around. Because at the end of the day, you are elected to represent them. And, it's not the other way around.
Brilliant. That's so good to hear, and it's so true. Because like you say, we drive. Whenever I'm home, I'll drive past like someone's like constituency office, and it's like there's no lights on, and you're like, oh
Yeah,
yeah, that's that person that's being paid crazy amounts of money every year, and we only see them at election time. But like if they actually have a
100%.
presence and they're out and about in the community, it makes so much difference.
Yeah.
And the last thing to ask really is, you're studying now at university. You already are an elected politician. What is next for you? What else is there for you to try to sort of achieve? Because you've done so much at such a young age.
Thank you. To be honest, I don't have anything specific, but I think it's just to continue try making a difference in our communities and speaking out whenever I see something. Um, I'm currently working with My Life, My Say, which is a big organization as a squad ambassador. And, we're getting to talk every week or every month with this big charity or ambassador group about what programs they're doing, what they're doing to change the world. And it's just really inspiring. So, to be honest, I hope to just keep somehow doing something to change the world, really.
I love it. That's amazing. And honestly,
Thank you.
when you are running for MP or MLA in the north, I'm going to move home. I'm going to live in your
Ah!
constituency so that I can give you my vote
Thank
because
you.
honestly,
Much
like you're so impressive.
appreciated.
And I also just have to say, I was like, okay, we're not going to record today because I like record a video because I'm not feeling it. But you've turned up looking so gorgeous and
Thank you so
glamorous.
much.
The hair is incredible. The makeup is
You're
incredible.
too
Like
kind.
I love it. I love whenever like no, really, I love it whenever like women are like into politics, but they're also like
I
just bad bitches.
know.
Do you know what I mean? I love it so much. Thank you so much for speaking with me. This has been an absolute delight. And I suppose if anyone has like any more questions or anything, they can probably like leave a comment on your page or something
Yeah,
if
for
there's
sure.
they want to get involved. And I will put everything in the show notes as well to kind of direct people to all these various programs that you've mentioned. And thank you so much. This has been fantastic. And yeah, I can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.